JD Vance was selected as the vice presidential nominee by President Trump. Now, JD Vance is famous for writing a 2016 memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, isn't it? And that was turned into a Netflix film. And Glenn Close, no, was it Glenn Close? I want to say it was Glenn Close was in it. But anyway, it's a really good film, which I watched a few years ago, not knowing who had written it. And Vance is a MAGA philosophical thinker like you wouldn't believe. And he exemplifies the background of those from broken homes who have been surrounded by alcohol addiction, drug dependency, and suffered as a consequence. But he managed to go to Yale Law School, dragged himself up, and has ended up as Trump's vice president nominee, which is a pretty incredible story. But the Democrats are all up in arms about him, saying, well, he's a far right, blah, 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 blah. And in this debate, when he was running for the Ohio Senate, he was questioned about his stance on abortion as being extreme. And this was his response when it was pointed out to him that a 10-year-old girl was struggling to receive medical intervention in the form of abortion. And you find out in this clip just why this 10-year-old girl had ended up pregnant. And I tell you what, after watching this clip, I cannot wait to see that hysterical hyena Kamala Harris debate this man. But let's have a watch, have a listen.
As an exception.
Look, I've always believed in reasonable exceptions. This is a misrepresentation of my view, but let's hear it from me, not from Congressman Ryan. I absolutely think the 10-year-old girl, the case that we've, of course, heard a lot about, an incredibly tragic situation. I mean, look, I've got a 9-year-old baby girl at home. I cannot imagine what that's like for the girl, for her family. God forbid something like that would happen. I have said repeatedly on the record that I think that girl should be able to get an abortion if she and her family so choose to do so. But let's talk about that case. Because why was a 10-year-old girl raped in our community, raped in our state in the first place? The thing the media and Congressman Ryan, they talk about this all the time. The thing they never mentioned is that poor girl was raped by an illegal alien, somebody that should have never been in this state in the first place. You voted so many times against border wall funding, so many times for amnesty, Tim. If you had done your job, she would have never been raped in the first place. Do your job on border security. Don't lecture me about opinions I don't actually have.
Now, I thought that was a tour de force, and it just goes to show, we were passing remark earlier about the complete collapse of any form of border security at the southern border in the United States. And this is the consequence, right? This is what happens when those who simply would never be allowed to go to America on any other metric, if you judge them on their character, repertoire, whatever else, come over and do things like that. And this poor little girl, scarred for life, and that's why she was seeking this abortion. It's a hideous story, but I'm surprised that the Democrat was thick enough to even challenge him on the issue, knowing that was the actual story behind it. But what do you make, Chloe, of JD Vance in general?
You know what? I didn't really know anything about the guy until he was announced as the VP. I haven't followed him very closely, but we saw going viral, those comments from him suggesting that, we are an Islamist state in Britain. So we'll
get on to that.
Something.
Don't talk about that yet. We'll get on to it.
But this clip here, I think that he owned that really, really well. He was able, they wanted a soundbite off him. They wanted a simple answer, but he gave the nuanced, proper explanation that actually explains his point of view very well. I think interesting how the left think that the solution to 10-year-old girls being raped by illegal migrants is just to give them abortions rather than attacking the cause of the problem. And it just reminds me of there's a video I reacted to from a Lib Dem candidate speaking with, I can't remember her name, the woman that runs Let Women Speak. And he was saying, when she was challenging him on trans women, i.e. biological men, being allowed in women's prisons, he's like, oh, it's all right, we just need to focus on opening up more rape crisis centres. What, so just allow those biological men to go in the prisons and rape who they want, but don't worry because we've got a rape crisis centre for you to go to afterwards. Like, the trauma's been caused, the damage has been done, you can't reverse it, and having an abortion does not get rid of the trauma from rape. In fact, you actually find that sometimes people who are raped who have abortions, it's often the case that although it might, for their mental health, improve them slightly in the short term, in the long term, it actually makes them worse off. The grievance of losing their baby, and it does not resolve the trauma of being raped. So stop it from happening in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, before you comment, I do want to play that clip of JD Vance speaking about Britain, about the United Kingdom, and see what he said, and then read you out Angela Rayner's reply. You won't want to miss that one. The brainy box, eh?
One of the big dangers in the... By the way, I have to beat up on the UK, just one additional thing. I was talking with a friend recently, and we were talking about, one of the big dangers in the world, of course, is nuclear proliferation, though, of course, the Biden administration doesn't care about it. And I was talking about, what is the first truly Islamist country that will get a nuclear weapon? And we were like, maybe it's Iran, maybe Pakistan already kind of counts. And then we sort of finally decided maybe it's actually the UK, since Labour just took over. But to my Tory friends, I have to say, you guys have got to get a handle on this, but neither here nor there. By the way, I have to beat up on the UK, just one out.
Tories get the shit together, yes, I should think so too. But Angela Rayner's reply, what she said, he said some fruity things. Angela Rayner defends Labour after Trump's new running mate touts UK as Islamist state. So her actual comment, her full comment was, I'm very proud of the election success that Labour had recently. We won votes across all different communities across the whole of the country, and we're interested in governing on behalf of Britain and also working with our international allies. Bullshit statement to try and pander to be nice to him, given that the Foreign Secretary literally called the future president again of the United States a neo-Nazi sympathiser. But she says, so I look forward to that meeting if that's the result, and it's up to the American people to decide. And she says that we will work with political leaders across the whole spectrum. They'll have opinions on what we do and suggest, and we'll work together constructively. And a Tory blasted the comments and said it was offensive. That's the Tory Andrew Bowie, who is the shadow Veterans Secretary. But Alex, I'm not convinced. Actually, the Tory comment is more robust against the Republican nominee than the Labour Angela Rayner's comment. And that wasn't me, by the way. And I can't get over that.
Hillary.
Because Clinton, oh yes, that's the Donald Trump clip.
Sorry.
And if you consider, right, the Tories saying that these comments by JD Vance are completely, what's the word he used? I've just reminded myself of it. He said offensive. But, that word is just, offensive. But you could consider the polling data that I've referenced before. The Henry Jackson Society found through JL Partners, it's a perfectly reputable polling company, that almost a quarter of 18 to 34-year-old British Muslims are down with the concept of jihad. It's cool with the kids. And that 1 in 3 of them from the same age group want Sharia law slapped onto British soil. And we're talking, about apostasy. I cannot say that word right now. Hand chopping, basically, for theft, and stoning or lashing for adultery. Lovely stuff. Perfectly in line with British values. And then during the election campaign, as we covered on this very channel, Angela Rayner sat in this sort of harem. Well, a harem would be full of women, but you get the point. This group of men in her constituency, Ashton-under-Lyne, and she was practically pleading for their votes. She thanked them for helping her escape through in 2019. But this is the twisted new sectarianism that we are experiencing in Britain today, where women are going to be dragged back to being second-class citizens, where the political left are playing footsie with a misogynistic brand of politics, despite saying that they are champions of women. But we also see it, of course, in the trans debate. That's not going to come to loggerheads at all, is it? And never before have we actually seen numbers of young people taken to the streets who resist integrating into our way of life and want to upend our lifestyles to actually dominate everybody else. So, frankly, I think Labour have lost their minds over losing seats over issues like focusing on Gaza and not Glasgow to these independent nut jobs who've ended up in Parliament. They've been cozying up to all kinds of shady characters, and the Labour Party actually refused to confront what is the new fascism. They talk about fascism all the time and call every Tom, Dick and Harry it, but actually these people are the new fascists, and I'm afraid they pander to these people who were brought here under Tony Blair, and the Conservatives obviously didn't exactly shut the door either, but actually were owed to the country to say these things frankly and openly. So I welcome JD Vance's intervention. I'm just going to say that plainly, come hell or high water. Alex, though, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think it's really important to clarify that he's obviously joking about us being an Islamist nation in general, because I know the left are trying to weaponize his words and make them sound extremist. He was obviously joking, and let's just be clear about that. But there is truth underlying what he's saying. And the truth is that we've just had a general election where key political players like Jonathan Ashworth, who's a front bench shadow cabinet minister, ejected to Islamists. We had Jess Phillips come within the skins of her teeth from it as well, and obviously receive a ton of abuse. We had Keir Starmer lose 16,000 votes again because of Islamism and Gaza candidates. The reality is that this sort of centre left wing coat that the Labour Party are currently shrouding everybody in is going to fall very, very quickly, because that party has been pandering to Islamists and pandering to their calls for Palestine and Gaza for the last 6 to 8 months. Inherently, the party is now infiltrated by them, and where they aren't infiltrated by them, they're being replaced by Islamist candidates. And look, let's just get real. The British population, the white British, the native British population is in decline. Our birth rate is dropping, and we are importing people in the millions. We had 1 million people arrive here this year, not net, because we take away the 400,000 people that left, but 1 million people still came to this country that we know of. And by the way, those figures are massively disputed. We think our population's far higher than that. It's way closer to 80 million than this ridiculous 60 million figure. So we know the replacement is starting. And there might be people who crap on this great replacement theory, but it is true. And places like London there are parts of London, like where I was born, where there are basically now native white British people are the minority. That is a fact. And that is going to replicate itself over and over again in more and more cities and towns across Britain as our society changes. And the reality that JD Vance has just pointed out is that the people that are in power today have been pandering to these Gaza people. They've not only did they sort of creak the door open, the Tories swung it far open for them. Yeah. And it doesn't look like where it's ever going to end.
Yeah, I mean,
you're absolutely right, Alex, about the population replacement, because the reality is that Muslims tend to have a lot more children than non-Muslims. It's a big part of their culture. They're very family orientated, which is, to be honest, one of the reasons why some people are flocking to Islam is, aside from some of the things that I very much disagree with in Islam, they do get a few things right, which is that they focus more on sort of the family unit and cooperation within the family rather than, which is one of the reasons, as sort of a response to some of the bad things that have come out of feminism, where we say, women being homemakers and looking after children is not something to be impressed by. That's one of the reasons why Islam is growing, which is an important thing to note. But just on the population side, Muslims are having a lot more children than non-Muslims, and us non-Muslims are having fewer and fewer children. You do the maths, eventually we end up in a situation where we are an Islamist country. What JD Vance has said, obviously, is an exaggeration in that we are not an Islamist country right now, but that is where we are headed if things keep continuing as they are. And there's a difference between saying, I'm happy to live in a society where we have lots of different faiths that get along well, to a point where Islam becomes the main faith that is everywhere, and your country then becomes pretty much an Islamist country. You can like the former and not be completely against Muslims without wanting the latter.
Yeah. Have you got what it takes to be a reasoned presenter? Well, send us a short clip of yourself to join@reasoned.uk, and we might be seeing you on this very channel very soon indeed.